Hello. Butcher's Crossing by John Williams. My goodness. Are you in the mood for a Western? Don't let that put you off. Please do not let that put you off because it would put me off. If somebody gave me a book and the first thing they said was, it's a Western, like, oh, really? The fact that it's a Western is quite incidental. This is one of the great American treasures. John Williams, I read Stoner many years ago, before I started the YouTube channel. One of these days I'm going to reread Stoner and make a video for it. But luckily, thank you to Leanne and Steve in Montreal for sending me this beautiful copy of Butcher's Crossing. NYRB edition was so nice. I'm not being sponsored by them, but I think I might write them an email and see if they will, chip in. Let me read you something where they start hunting the buffalo. After a while, Andrews began to perceive a rhythm in Miller's slaughter. First, with a deliberate, slow movement that was a tightening of the arm muscles, a steadying of his head, and a slow squeeze of his hand, Miller would fire his rifle, then quickly he would eject the still-smoking cartridge and reload. He would study the animal he had shot, and if he saw that it was cleanly hit, his eyes would search among the circling herd for a buffalo that seemed particularly restless. After a few seconds, the wounded animal would stagger and crash to the ground, and then he would shoot again. The whole business seemed to Andrews like a dance, a thunderous minuet created by the wildness that surrounded it. Once, during the stand, several hours after Miller had felled the first of the buffalo, Schneider crawled up behind them and called Miller's name. Miller gave no sign that he heard. Schneider called again more loudly, and Miller jerked his head slightly toward him, but still he did not answer. "Give it up," Schneider said. "You've got 70 or 80 of them already. That's more than enough to keep Mr. Andrews and me busy half the night." "No," Miller said. A little bit later, on the next page. It was the middle of the afternoon before the stand was broken. The original herd had been diminished by 2/3 or more. In a long, irregular swath that extended beyond the herd for nearly a mile, the ground was littered with the dark mounds of dead buffalo. Andrew's knees were raw from crawling after Miller, as they made their way, yard by yard, in slow pursuit of that southward list of the circling herd. His eyes burned from blinking against the gun smoke, and his lungs pained him from breathing it. His head throbbed from the sound of gunfire, and upon the palm of one hand blisters were beginning to form from his handling of the hot barrels. For the last hour he had clenched his teeth against any expression of pain his body felt. In this novel, Mr. Andrews has left Harvard University after 3 years of study because he heard Emerson come and give a speech. I believe Emerson was a famous American naturalist who really pushed the idea of men getting back to nature and living more naturalistic lives. So having heard this speaker come and deliver his ideas to these young university students attending Harvard, privileged, this Mr. Andrews leaves Harvard, travels down to, where does he go? Missouri? Travels down to Kansas to the small outpost known as Butcher's Crossing. And the reason it's known as this is because, simply, Butcher's Crossing is a place where hunters come to sell their buffalo hides. And there is one man in the town who pays them for their buffalo hides, and he cures them. He sells the hides, but the people who hang around this town, they're buffalo hunters, by and large, and prostitutes. These men, they come in, they sell their hides, they hang out at the local hotel for a little while, trying to get a taste for the city life, even though there's only a few buildings in this town. There's the hotel, there's the saloon, and even the barber is just a tent beside the hotel, a little tent with a sign painted on a piece of wood that says barber, and that's where people go to get their hair cut. And this city is made out of rough wood. That was the impression I got when I was reading the first half of this book, was that this young man comes into town, he sees a tiny little outpost that is so rough and unfinished because not enough people live there yet. There's only one industry. The only reason this little town operates is to be an outpost for the buffalo hunters and the man that buys their hides. Butcher's Crossing. Young man with soft hands from Harvard goes to meet the hide buyer, and this older man tries to persuade him not to go out with the hunters, to join up with him, and they could start a business and they could become fantastically wealthy. He tells the young man, he says that the railroad is coming to this town. When the railroad hits this town, we're going to be big. Like now, we're just nowhere, nothing kind of a place. But when we get the railroad, the money's going to come rolling in. And if we have some land, we'll be land barons. And the young man tells him, said, no, I want to go out on a hunt. And this older man who buys the hides, he really has a very bad opinion of the hunters and about the kind of lives that they lead when they're out on a hunt, the violence and the extreme things that they have to deal with, that you're risking your life. It is life and death out there on a buffalo hunt. It is no joking matter. It is not like perhaps we think about hunting today where we go out there with all of our gear. Like, this is man against nature, and nature has the advantage in this case. If you're going to come back alive, you really need to know what you're doing. The older businessman looks at the young man. He says, well, you're full of all these wild ideas. If you insist on going out on a hunt, you go out with the hunter, Miller. If you go out with him, you've got a better chance of coming back alive. Andrews insists. He goes and he finds Miller drinking in the hotel. He talks to him. Miller says, well, I could take you on a hunt. I know a location where it is a valley between these two mountains. It is undiscovered. In this valley, there is a herd of buffalo that we don't have herds of buffalo like that in America anymore. Like, all of the great herds have been killed. Now you'll find a few little herds of buffalo, but in this valley, which is so hidden and inaccessible, that I know where it is. If we go there, we're going to find one of the truly great old buffalo herds. If you have the money to finance this trip, I will be the leader. I will be the boss. I will take 60% of the earnings. You'll get 40%, but I will take you there and I'll bring you back. And not only that, but we will come back with such a collection of buffalo hide that we will all become fantastically wealthy. The young man is more concerned with the excitement, the adventure, the getting out into nature and finding out about America being built on this buffalo hunt. He's not too concerned about the money, although it is his money, which is going to finance everything. They're going to have to hire a skinner who's going to be ripping the hides off all the buffalo. They're going to have to buy a cart, and they're going to have to buy a team of oxen, as well as some horses. So it's going to be quite a huge expenditure for this young man with his soft hands from Harvard, just to get the whole thing started. But he agrees to finance it. Miller rides out of town to go hire Schneider, the skinner, to buy the cart and to get the oxen, and also to buy all of the supplies, to buy the rifles, to buy the ammunition. And that's how the book begins. There is a scene where Mr. Andrews has a meeting with one of the local prostitutes, and she takes a shine to him, especially because he's so soft. All of the men in this town are buffalo killers, and they're all violent men of extreme natures, and their hands are like stone. Their skin is like old leather, hard, weather-beaten men. And so when she sees this young university boy, she said, man, I'll give it to you for free. That's quite a good scene, and it tells us quite a lot about our main character. I won't go into details, but it's excellent. The four men, Miller, the leader, Andrews, the student, Schneider, the skinner, and this other guy, Charlie Hodge. And he's an old man, and he's going to be the guy that sets up the camp and does all the cooking. He also happens to be quite an alcoholic and obsessed with the Bible. He reads the Bible and drinks whiskey. These four men set out to go to try to find Miller's hidden valley with this unimaginably huge buffalo herd, untouched, virgin territory that no other buffalo hunter has yet encountered. And from there, we get some of the most perfect, incredible descriptions of the hardships that these hunters would have had to bear, especially from the student, Andrew's point of view, because on the very first day, he has to ride his horse from sunup to sundown. I think I've been on a horse maybe 3 or 4 times in my life, I think for 60 minutes at the very most. And I'm sure that I could feel it in my legs and my ass the next day. He's on a horse, I think for 12 hours at least, and he can feel his body being rubbed and chafed. The pain, the terrible physical pain, the hardship that he has to endure just to stay on his horse before his body becomes used to the pain and he forgets about it, because that pain, perhaps it doesn't go away, but it doesn't become a pain anymore because he gets used to it to the point of it becomes invisible to him. And there are many things which are like that. The sunlight, the sun on his face and the beard. There is one part where they are going where they don't have any water for 24 hours. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to read. These men desperately craving water because they don't have any. Not only that, but the animals, the horses they are riding, they are afraid are just going to die beneath them because they're so desperate for water. And these, I think 10 or 12 oxen that they have that are pulling the cart are also so desperate for water. The 4 men and all of these animals are so, we need water or we will die out here in this desert. God damn, that made me so nervous and anxious. Like, are they going to find the water? And while I was asking that question, I was also wondering, does Miller even know what he's talking about? He's talking about this buffalo El Dorado, this mythical land where no one else has ever discovered these buffalo. Like, is he actually telling us the truth? Does he know about this secret Buffalo Valley, or is he insane? Has he been a hunter too long? And the idea that he thinks he knows about this secret buffalo area that no hunter has ever touched. This is his secret place alone. And he's been waiting for 5, 6, 7, or 8 years to go back to find the valley. Is this real? Are these men completely fools to be following this Miller? Maybe he knows where he is. Maybe he doesn't know where he is, because there's one very critical moment when they're crossing the desert and they don't have any water where Miller seems to get lost. He says, oh, the land is so flat and I've missed a couple of landmarks and I'm not entirely sure where we are. We don't have any water out here. We're all about to die from lack of water. Are they following someone who actually knows where he's going? Are they going to find this buffalo gold mine? And if they do, will they be able to get all of these buffalo hides back to Butcher's Crossing? That's also quite a big question mark. There's so many hardships that these men have to bear. Like, straight away, Andrews has to get used to just sitting in the saddle, riding a horse from morning to night. I felt it. I felt it in my body when he was describing this. It was like, that's what makes this whole book so fantastic, is that there's the opening scene where he goes to this Butcher's Crossing. Everything is so rough. He talks about the furniture being made out of basic, simple wood. Wife's home. Well, I guess we're going to have to stop the video early today because my wife and son just came home, and that maybe is not a bad thing. Maybe the video should be a little bit shorter anyway. And I just want to tease you with what this novel is about, because I don't want to give too much away, but the descriptions, all of these incredibly powerful descriptions. I want to read one more thing before she gets back. Please read this book. Thank you very much to Leanne and Steve in Montreal for sending it to me. You guys are the best. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. At the end of the year, when I do my big best books of 2025, this book is surely going to be in the top 5. Absolutely 100%. I want to read one more thing before we go. Just watch me, Snyder said. He selected a long curving blade and grasped it firmly in his right hand. With his left hand, he pushed back the heavy collar of fur around the buffalo's neck. With his other hand, he made a small slit in the hide and drew his knife swiftly from the throat across the belly. The hide parted neatly with a faint ripping sound. With a stubbier knife, he cut along the bag that held the testicles, cut through the cords that held them, and the limp penis to the flesh. He separated the testicles, which were the size of small crab apples. Then he slit the few remaining inches of hide to the anal opening. I always save the balls, he said. They make mighty good eating, and they put starch in your pecker. Unless they come off an old bull, then you better just stay away from them. With still another knife, Schneider cut around the neck of the animal, beginning at that point where he had made the belly slit, and lifting the huge head up and supporting it on one knee so that he could cut completely around the throat. Then he slit around each of the ankles and ripped down the inside of each leg until the knife met the first cut down the belly. He loosened the skin around each ankle until he could get a handhold on the hide, and then he shucked the hide off the leg until it lay loose folds upon the side of the buffalo. After he had laid the skin back on each leg, he loosened the hide just above the hump until he could gather a loose handful of it. Upon this, he knotted a thin rope that he got from his saddlebag. The other end he tied to his saddle horn. He got in the saddle and backed his horse up. The hide peeled off the buffalo as the horse backed. The heavy muscles of the bull quivered and jerked as the hide was shucked off. "And that's all there is to it," said Schneider, getting down from his horse. He untied the rope from the bull hide. "Then you spread it out flat on the ground to dry, fur side up, so it won't dry out too fast." Now you know how to skin a buffalo. Please get a copy of this book. So fantastic. I wish I hadn't even have said that it was a Western. It happens to take place in the American West involving the buffalo hunting, but it is pure American beautiful literature. And you will feel all of it. You'll feel all of the descriptions. You'll feel all of the vivid color that John Williams paints. What an absolute master. The only complaint I have about this book is the introduction is a bit weird. Didn't like the introduction. I always save the introduction for after I've read the novel. I didn't get too much from the introduction out of this one. Oh well. Please go get this book and read it as soon as you can. I've got to go. All right, family's home. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe and support on Patreon if you possibly can.